welcome back, and we are officially kick-starting our second round of our town hall session here on Open Your Eyes. We are joined this morning by Honorable Wilfred Elrington, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and his CEO, Pat Andrews, of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And this morning, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And this morning, asking the questions will be these young minds from different educational institutions and representing different parts of the country as well. We have with us Zachary Garbutt, who is representing, he's the president of Galen University. Next to him, we have Micheal Zuniga, who is the vice chair of the UWI Student Association Belize. Next to him, we have Jenine Wiliams, who is from PG, but is representing the UE Student Association in Jamaica. And we have Alexandria Tillett, who is the vice chair for the Student Association for the University of West Indies in Trinidad. Over on this side, we have Ortiz, who is the vice president for ITVET Orange Walk. In the middle, we have the secretary of the National Youth Council, Shayanne, Dena. And on the end, we have well-known volleyball athlete, Bryton of the National Volleyball Association. Good morning.
And
welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you for being here, and we're so excited. All right. So I want to start off by allowing your opening for this morning, kind of setting the backdrop for the conversation, especially when it comes to reaching out to young people within Belize.
Thank you, Marilene. Let me start off by thanking Channel 5 for this tremendously altruistic, patriotic act of organizing these town hall meetings. There is nothing more important than giving the Belizean people correct, proper information on the Belize Guatemala dispute. And as far as I know, Channel 5 is the only media house which in fact volunteers its time, effort, energy, and resources to educating the public. So this is the second in a series, and I must commend them. This is really patriotism at its highest, and also philanthropy at its highest, and I want to commend them for that. I'm always very excited in the presence of smart people, and nobody is smarter, of course, than the young people in our country. So we are tremendously privileged and pleased to be here, myself and CEO Pat Andrews. The Belize Guatemala claim, the dispute, is the single most important issue that is going to be faced by Belizeans in this century. It's the single most important issue. And it is going to impact the youth the most, because we are older folks now. Certainly I am verging on 70 years old, so I don't have much more time to deal with this matter. But I have been grappling with it from the time I was about 10 years old, because it was during this time, as a matter of fact, when the British first sent their troops here. It was 1948, the year when I was born, that when the British first sent their troops here, and I have been involved in it actively since then. I've been participating in every anti-Guatemalan demonstration there has been. I've been arrested and convicted for protesting against the Guatemalans and their claim to my country. So I'm intimately informed about it, and what we would want to do is to get you as intimately informed. So we want to thank Channel 5 for giving us this opportunity to dialogue with you.
And we want to thank you and thank our young people who seem to have come so prepared. So I want to start off with having you field the first question, and let's give Micheal the opening, because he seems very antsy with his question there. Just remember to hold up your mics when you talk, please.
No problem. Good morning.
Good morning, Michael.
We have a few questions from our student body, but I would like to bring a very serious question first. All right. This is to the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Can the Minister of Foreign Affairs shed light on the already cloudy atmosphere concerning the situation along the Starstone Island, where Guatemala seems to be claiming the deepest channel of the river, preventing civilians from areas, as well as to impede on the military who is supposed to be protecting and exercising governance over the territorial and maritime integrity. Since this matter is now going before the ICJ, should our sovereign Belize continue to fold our hands, claim diplomacy, while Guatemala continues to bully our Belizean citizens? Of course, this occurs while Guatemalan countrymen continue to fish, plant, and hunt in our territory.
That's a very good question. Very, very good question. Really, the information that has been latched onto by the public is almost completely and totally erroneous. It's misinformation. It's false information. And what I have just handed out, each one of you, or to two of you on both sides, is the treaty which deals with the question. And this is what Clause 6 of the treaty states. It's very important, and it's available in it's a public domain. It says it is further agreed that the channels in the waterline of boundary described in Article 1 of the present convention shall be equally free and open to the vessels and boats of both parties, and that any island which may be found therein shall belong to that party on whose side of the main navigable channel they are situated. Let me just read paragraph 1, because 1 and 6 are very important. Paragraph 1 says, Article 1 says, it is agreed between Her Britannic Majesty and the Republic of Guatemala that the boundary between the Republic and the British settlement and possessions in the Bay of Honduras as they existed previous to and on the 31st day of January 1850, and have continued to exist up to the present time, and is as follows: beginning at the mouth of the River Sastoon in the Bay of Honduras, and proceeding up the mid-channel thereof to Gracias a Dios Falls, then turning to the right and containing by a line drawn direct from Gracias a Dios Falls to Garbutt Falls on the River Belize, and from Garbutt Falls due north until it strikes the Mexican frontier. Two things are significant here. Article 1 talks about the main channel, and that is really the dividing line. But Article 6 says that the Guatemalans and the Belizean boaters have the right and entitlement to use all the channels. So I don't think it has ever been ascertained whether any of the allegations that the Guatemalans were not in their side of the river or in their part of the river, correct? Because they are entitled to be free on all the channels that exist, the main as well as the other channels that would exist on both sides of the main channel, okay? So that is their entitlement by virtue of the treaty. It's clear, there is absolutely no dispute that the Sastoon Island is well within Belize's territory. We have no dispute about that, and we have maintained that. Now, whereas there have been popular claims, particularly by a particular entity down south of Guatemalan transgression into Belizean waters, that is not the claim that we have been getting from our BDF people. As a matter of fact, the most recent incident that was being publicized on Love FM, we have no official report of that. None. And every single week, our BDF is required to go up the Sastoon and come down because we have a base there. If anything were happening, normally and naturally they would inform us and we would take steps. So much of the information that is disseminated on a weekly basis in the media that purports to be the truth is very misleading and very untrue.
So what about those who believe that the 1996 Maritime Agreement was the wrong way to go from the beginning, and therefore that may be a barrier to us even winning, having confidence in going to the ICJ?
The Maritime Areas Act, that was in 1993, wasn't it?
1993.
And that was done in contemplation of a settlement. The Serrano, President Serrano.
Some feel that we were basically bullied into this.
No. As a matter of fact, Syed Musa's book deals with it very, very, very clearly. very, very clearly. And if you permit me to read it, I think it's 167. He says that President Serrano, in 1991, he had met him, and President Serrano had agreed to recognize our independence, our sovereignty. The claim still existed, but he said that they wanted to end the claim because they had far more important issues to deal with than the Belize claim. And it was in that spirit that I think a deal was cut between our then leaders. I think it was Syed Musa, certainly was the foreign minister then, and the Guatemalans, whereby it was agreed that in return for the acknowledgement of Guatemala, of our independence and sovereignty, they would in fact agree to this Maritime Areas Act. That is the context in which it was done. It was a quid pro quo because our leaders have always been searching for a solution to this matter in a peaceful way. And it was thought that some compromise could be reached, and that would have been a compromise. But we can't reach compromise in this claim. Any side decide to give up anything is going to be regarded as a traitor. So shortly after Serrano agreed to this proposal, he had to flee the country, and I think he still lives abroad in exile because the Guatemalans regarded him as a traitor.
Thank you.
Anybody have anything along the lines of Sarstoon that they wanted to touch on since we're here on this topic? No?
All right.
Okay. And I think one of the things that Micheal brought up, which was very important, was looking at the images that we do see. Minister, let me just throw in a question to follow up there. The issue of the Sarstoon Protocol is one that we continue to hear about. Will we see a resolution in this issue before we get to the referendum? What is the current status?
All right. A protocol is simply an arrangement that you refer to when you come in difficult circumstances. You find yourself in difficult circumstances, how do you get out of it? Yeah. That is basically what we are talking about when there is a protocol. So there are Belizeans who insist on going on the Sarstoon, and they are entitled to do that. But whenever they go on the Sarstoon, or from time to time when they go on the Sarstoon, we get allegations that the Guatemalans are seeking to impede them or to prevent them from transiting it freely. We get those allegations. It made publicly, as well as to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Now, how do we deal with that situation to avoid it escalating and going out of control? Because the last thing we'd want is for escalation to take place, gunshots to be fired, people are killed. That's the last thing Belize wants. So how we want to settle it? We think we could settle it by having a protocol, whereby if you want to transit the river, the Sarstoon, and you're having problems, we could in fact have our general call the Guatemalan general. The general from Guatemala can call us. We can talk to our customs people. Our peace custom people could talk to the Guatemalan custom people, and that kind of thing. That is basically what we are talking about in relation to a protocol. I believe that we should extend that protocol to the sea as well, because we have no arrangement regarding incidents that can occur on the sea. Whereas we have relating to the western border, we have that agreed, and that was negotiated by the previous government. We have no such agreement dealing with the sea and the Sarstoon. On the western border, we have the OYE office at the adjacency zone that will verify incidents. We have no such office in Sarstoon. We have no such dealing with the seas. So ideally, we would wish to get a protocol dealing with those things. But it takes two to have it done. And the Guatemalans are resisting. They don't want to sign anything. Whereas they do have an arrangement with us whereby our generals talk to each other and our people down at the Sarstoon talk to each other. They refuse to commit anything to writing, even though they committed to do so some years ago in Turkey and at the OAS.
So go ahead.
Have we ever thought about maybe having a buffer zone in order for the territory to be protected?
It's a good question he is raising. The buffer zone exists in the west. That's why you have this adjacency zone. 1 kilometer to the east of what should be our border is Belize territory, 1 kilometer to the west, Guatemalan territory. And that was agreed upon because in 2000, the Guatemalans had actually seized 4 of our soldiers and BDF and took them to Guatemala. We had to literally use less than honorable means to get them away. They had to flee.
You
the
guys are
coup.
too young to remember that. The
Flee
entire
the
country
coup.
was
Everybody
just
was
holding
scared.
their breath
Yeah.
till they were brought back
So
over.
yes, the idea of a buffer zone is excellent, but it cannot be arrived at without the agreement of Guatemala. And you don't get the agreement of Guatemala by being strident and vociferous and loud and think you could intimidate them, because it is like a little ant trying to intimidate an elephant. An ant can't intimidate an elephant. So whereas you have to be in a principled way and forcefully articulate for your position, you can't bully Guatemala into agreeing to anything, and nothing will happen unless they agree to it.
Okay, Michael, we'll ask you to hold on to that question for a bit just so we can move over to this side. Bryton, you have something that you want to ask?
Okay, so good morning, and thank you all for the invitation this morning. Today I present myself in the capacity as a member of the Young Leaders Association of Belize. First and foremost, I'd like to ask the Minister of Foreign Affairs to assist the Belizean populace to understand the educational campaign as to what it includes, the extent of the information being shared, as well as the entity providing an alternative position. And how is it that this information is being presented in a palatable manner for the common man to digest?
Could I just invite my CEO, who really is responsible for that technical aspect of the operation, to respond to that?
Thank you very much for that question. Presently, the public awareness campaign, as approved by the cabinet, is one concerning the education process only. No yes vote is being pursued. As we speak, we have a unit in charge of the public awareness campaign. Ambassador Alexis Rosado is heading that team. And we have a structure in place already for a phased-in campaign. When I say phased-in campaign, I talk about basically the fact that you haven't seen much ads on TV or on the radio yet, but it's coming. It's coming in the next week or two, phased, because we can't be doing ads from now till April 10th, 2019. It's very expensive, but we'll want to build up on that. Meanwhile, Ambassador Rosado has had with his team presentations made to about 60, 70 groups already. So he's fanning out throughout the country. When we went to Cabinet and got their approval, concurrently, we also met with the Referendum Commission, who is a widespread civil society group, churches, business community, and things like that. And Rosado made a presentation which talked about the strategy, which talked about the roadmap that he'd be more or less pursuing. You know, the truth of the matter is that the public awareness campaign is very, very carefully planned, but it will also involve having to have people like youth, like you, and the public in general understand that for Belize, the clock is ticking. We need to educate our people. We need to educate our people because long ago, Guatemala used to do the same thing with their people. We didn't, because we administered, we possessed this country, and that is what basically, when we look at the ICJ, we understand that we have tried everything. You all have tried everything, negotiation and mediation, and really nothing has worked. So the last thing we have is to go with the legal option. And so, you know, the public awareness campaign, like I said, is going to be one that will gain momentum. And again, it's something that with misinformation, as the minister was talking about, it kind of clouds the whole situation. And we don't have time for distractions. We really don't. We have to have our people ready come April 10th. And I think that the Prime Minister termed it well when he mentioned to the President of Guatemala that this is one issue we don't want to leave for you guys. We do not want to leave that for you guys. I was born and raised in San Ignacio, and I remember in the 60s and 70s when there was mobilization of troops in Guatemala, how it would really terrorize our people. We want to put that all behind us.
Does the education campaign include those who are pushing for a no vote? Have they been consulted to include any information?
The public awareness campaign will take those into consideration. They will take the no vote into consideration. Just like eventually when the yes vote starts emerging, they will also be taken into consideration. Right now, we don't want to be distracted. We want to keep on the education path.
Could I just add one thing?
Yes.
Because it's very important. Last week, I got a call from a media house asking whether we would be prepared at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to finance a program, perhaps on a Wednesday night, to give forum to those who are saying no. That is something which we have got to take to the cabinet. But from the time the issue of going to the ICJ was raised, that particular media house has been allowing every single person who wanted to say no to oppose it to do so. And that happens every single day. Every single day people are saying no, no, no. As a matter of fact, if you want to be honest and fair, you will agree that on the media, the TV and the radio, you hear more people articulating no than yes. Because we have been slow to come out with our yes campaign. We haven't started it, as you're saying. We are just simply educating. Whereas on the media, on a daily basis, you have people in a strident way saying, don't go, no, don't go, no. We haven't started to say yes yet. And also, too, you will recall that the last time we were on this program, we had Mr. Morgan and his group who were very stridently anti-going to the ICJ. We have had forum as well through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs where people like Morgan has been present and also have been allowed to articulate their views. So we're not stopping anybody. Finally, I would like to say this. Every media house can take a page out of the book of Channel 5. Organize your own forum. Organize your own town hall meeting. That is patriotism. Spend a few dollars. Give back a few dollars to your country, even at a sacrifice. But educate your people. Do what Channel 5 is doing.
Quickly on the educational aspect of having our people being cognizant of this entire situation. In the educational process, do we talk about what really the ICJ is? Who sits on the ICJ? How many judges are on the ICJ? How are they chosen to the ICJ? What is their length of time sitting at the ICJ? See, these are some of the things that we need to be cognizant of in order for us to make a sound decision for us to go, whether or not to go, or for us whether to go. The education process, is that there?
It is there. Minister, I'm sure that is something that is included in the public awareness campaign. It is because it's very important.
Yeah.
Likewise, the issue of basically understanding litigation risk and understanding that people will say, but listen, we have a chance that if everything is okay right now and we go to court, well, they can rule against us. And we have to basically talk to them about the legal advice that the previous government and this government has gotten that makes us believe that we have a very good case to present. Minister?
Could I just add that this book has been around for years, produced by Assad Schumann for years. No Belizean young person should be without a copy of this book. Seek out, find it. You go to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we'll make it available to you. Let me tell you what it reads on page 17. It says, what we can expect from the ICJ, the International Court of Justice. The International Court of Justice, established by the Charter of the United Nations as the principal judicial organ of the United Nations, is composed of a body of 15 independent judges elected by the General Assembly and the Security Council for a term of 9 years, and they may be re-elected. The judges must be persons of high moral character who possess the qualifications required in their respective countries for appointment to the highest judicial offices or are jurists of recognized competence in international law. There is no history of ICJ judges being bribed to decide for one country over another. So you have everything answered right here. It's all here. It's publicly available, free of cost. No excuse for us not to access it.
We
Let's
can
mo-
make those available.
Let's move into another question. Go ahead.
Good morning. My question, if Belizeans should ultimately decide no with the referendum, what would be the possible repercussions, and what would then be the what would the ministry then do from there?
You want to answer?
You
Let me answer that question. Again, it is stated here. Let me just refer to what Assad says. I agree with almost everything he says in relation to this matter. Not everything that he writes I agree with, but in relation to this, let me just find what he says. In relation to this, I agree with almost everything he says.
So the question is, what if we vote
happens if
no?
we say no? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
rated here. What happens if we vote no and Guatemala votes yes? Which is identically the situation that we're now faced with. This is right in here, page 26. We will lose international support and understanding for our cause. This is very alarming because Belize became independent with territorial integrity and security and has maintained those gains only because of such international support. There is no law that guarantees us this support forever, regardless of what we do. Should our international allies, including United Kingdom, begin to feel that we are being unreasonable, the tide can easily and quickly turn against us and leave us exposed and to a large extent defenseless. Guatemalans know they really have no legal case. They are willing to submit to the judgment of the ICJ in order not to appear to be going against international norms. Guatemalan diplomats and foreign ministers have confessed to us over the years that Guatemala is isolated in the world because of what the international community regards as their anachronistic claim. In addition, you will know that just after the referendum in Guatemala, there were allegations of Guatemalans coming across to Belize because somehow or the other they thought that that gave them license to come across to Belize.
Yeah, in the Chiquibo.
You vote no, the likelihood is that we no longer have the OAS adjacency zone office to protect us and help us. Who will stop the Guatemalans from coming across? There are 17 million of them, 400,000 Belizeans. Who will stop them? You know right now in the world the most serious threat to the entire world is migration. The Americans are so scared of people migrating from Central America to the United States that they want to build a wall. Thousands of years ago, the Chinese were so scared of the Mongols that they built the big wall of China to try to keep people out. The Israelis have built a wall to keep the Palestinians out. We can't build no wall. We have no money, and neither do we have manpower. So that is some of the problems that we can contemplate. It's a matter which we have given thought to, and later on, if you want us to go into more depth, we can do that.
Well, I think the second question is, what is the plan from the ministry if there is a no vote?
What is the plan from the ministry? To be exceedingly candid to you, ma'am, we are now developing that. That is a matter which we are now developing because it's a very serious matter, very relevant matter. We don't have the blueprint yet, but it is being developed because we have to contemplate that. There may well be people who want to say, look, we don't care. You know, this thing is similar to people who are faced with a hurricane coming. You tell them move because this hurricane is seriously going to kill you. They say, no, I born here, I grow here, I live here, I've always lived here. I've gone through many hurricanes. And then this one come and wipe them away. It's too late. But people will act in that way. So we have to think about what happens if in fact there's a no vote. And we are working on it right now.
Good morning, Belize. The flip side to that question. What if we vote yes and we do go to the ICJ? Given that litigation involves risks, and although there are those who feel that Belize has an ironclad case, there is always the possibility of us losing. After all, every case boils down to evidence, who presents the better evidence, and the person who is there presenting our side of the story.
Yeah.
My question is, what if Belize loses? I am from Punta Gorda, actually Jacintoville, but the entire Toledo district. We stand to lose more than 53% of our country. What happens to the entire population of the southern part of Belize? What happened to the people of Toledo district? What happened to my family, my friends, and the entire population there? Many of us have our homes, our businesses, our livelihood there. Is there a place for us in the northern part of Belize where we could move should we decide not to remain in that area? Do we get to keep our nationality if we would decide to remain in that area? How does the government have a contingency plan for that?
Good question. It's a comprehensive one. It has lots of questions in one.
Yes, powerful, thank you.
And it calls for good clarification. Let me clarify. Fundamental issue. The Guatemala is claiming the entire country. Not PG, not Jacintoville, not Sudun to Sarstun, the entire country. This claim came into effect on the 21st of September 1939 when the Guatemalan informed the British that they are no longer bound or regarding themselves to be bound by the 1859 treaty. It was the 1859 treaty that established our boundaries with them. So if they purport to repudiate it, then it would mean that there would be no treaty, and therefore the whole of Belize would become Guatemalan territory.
Okay,
so it is not something that you alone worry about. All of us have to worry about it. And when you're talking about losing a case, you have to explain what that means. Because there are different aspects of it. You may not get all you're asking for, you may get part of what you're asking for, etc., etc. But cases are regulated by laws, international laws. And the good thing about this case here is that almost every single country in the world has some border dispute. As a matter of fact, in our Western Hemisphere alone, fully 10 of the 19 countries in our Western Hemisphere have border disputes right now, right now, live border disputes, and many of them are at the ICJ. In Africa, because God didn't make borders, borders were made by man. Powers get together and they divide up the country, and it is because borders were made by man that borders are described as artificial. Artificial simply means man-made, you see? So the borders, because everybody has borders, nobody wants to see borders altered. And so the law is that once you agree to borders in a treaty, even if the treaty falls apart in the court, the borders remain. So it doesn't matter what happens, the western border will remain. The northern border, which is a result of an 1893 treaty with Mexico and the British, that will remain. The western border will remain. The Sarstun border will remain. The only area where we can have some surprising issue on is the sea border, because that has never been demarcated and delimited. But that also is regulated by the law of the sea under the United Nations Convention. You see? So no legal advisor, neither for Belize or for Guatemala, has ever suggested that in fact Belize can lose anything. As a matter of fact, the consensus by all the lawyers is that Guatemala has a legally desperate case. The Guatemalans recognize that too, as Assad pointed out here, but they have to end the dispute. And when Portillo came here and spoke to Syed Musa, he said, look, we want to get rid of this thing. We have far more important issues to deal with than this issue. So we want to get rid of it. So there is no prospect that you will lose anything. And if you lose, I will lose too. Whether I live in Corazon or Belize City, the same fate is going to befall me. And what is that fate? Guatemala wants the land. In like manner in which Israel wanted the Palestinian land and took most of it, Guatemala wants the land. But they don't want the people. So in like manner in which the Palestinians are now refugees, Belizeans will become refugees if in fact Guatemala take this land. None of us will have our house that we live in, or our yard that we live in, or our farm that we live in, because that's what the Guatemalans want. They want the land, the house, the farm, the keys, the rivers. You see? So we will become refugees if that were to happen. All of us, nobody is going to fare any better or worse because they're claiming the whole country. That's my understanding of the claim, and that's my understanding of what will happen.
You had a follow-up?
I was just asking, based on the maps that are often displayed, it shows that there is a disputed area. But now that you cleared it up, that it's the entirety of Belize that they're claiming.
You look at Google. As a matter of fact, if you look at Google, it will show you that the entire Belizean border has this serrated mark, which means that the border is not officially established. If I pass this around, you will see what is the state of our borders and the state of most of the borders in the region. They're not, it's disputed. You have settled boundaries, you have disputed boundaries, and then you have virtual boundaries.
Okay. All right, what we're going to do right now is take a very quick pause in the conversation. We will be back in just a few minutes, and of course, our town hall session continues. This is our young representatives who are fielding their own questions to the Minister and CEO of Foreign Affairs as we continue our education process on the road to the ICJ. So please, stay tuned.
When someone you love becomes a memory, the memory becomes a treasure. Channel 5 introduces the Daily Obituaries. The Daily Obituaries will broadcast all death and funeral announcements and memorials to honor your loved one's life and memories. The Daily Obituaries airs on Channel 5 prior to the evening newscast, with subsequent repeats at 10 p.m. and 12 noon the following day. It will also be placed online on our social media platforms, all for a standard package fee. Celebrate their lives and memories with Channel 5's Daily Obituaries. Honor in life and reverence in death.
And welcome back, and we are continuing with our town hall session. This is our second in our series, and this morning our featured panel, if you're just joining us, are youth representatives from different schools, different student associations, and we're going to be continuing at this time. And we have Zachary Garbutt, who's the president of Galen University, who's going to be fielding the first question.
Yes, good morning. Like she said, I'm here to represent Galen University as the Student Council President. And just to speak on the question that was previously asked, but looking at it from a different angle, suppose the Belizean people vote yes to go into the ICJ and everything goes to plan, meaning we go to the ICJ and we win our case. Then my question is, if we have used every other form of mediation to try and resolve the issue with Guatemala, then what guarantees that a yes vote and a winning the case at the ICJ will resolve the issue? Because, like you said, we have tried everything else and they have not accepted our borders as yet. So how do we defend our borders at that point, or what is the process to carry out the ruling of the court?
Very good question. Very, very good question. I saw you at the graduation. Congratulations. A very good question. Many times we don't think enough about it. But the truth is that our western border is to a very large extent protected by the Guatemalans, because we have not had the capacity to keep them out, you know. We don't have the soldier, we don't have the military might, and yet they have not encroached. They have not come in, they have not been bothering us in any serious and grave way like in other countries, you see. So to a large extent, our good, harmonious existence has been as a result of the mature attitude of the Guatemalan government and people in not bothering us. They could not solve the problem, the politicians, because any politician who sought to solve it would be accused of treason. Right now, there is a suggestion that the American president may be guilty of treason, because societies get very worried and scared when they see you working with people who are supposed to be your enemy, you see. So it is for that reason that the Guatemalan officials could not agree. Neither could the Belizean officials. I only see artificial border and everybody want to kill me. You see? So that is the reality.
And they still don't like it.
Right. So that's the reality. But if you have the court decide, then it takes everybody off the hook. I didn't do anything, you didn't do anything. The court decided that, in fact, this is the boundaries of Belize and this is the boundaries of Guatemala. Mm-hmm. And the expectation is that not only will the goodwill of Guatemala continue, because they need our goodwill to be able to trade with foreign countries and foreign entities and the like. So they need our support. We are in SICA together, we are in the OAS together, we are in the UN together. We're very close together. You can't be closer to Guatemala than we are in SICA. You see what I mean? It's an integration movement. Mm-hmm. So we're very close to them, and they are not, there is no indication that they have a militaristic interest in overcoming our country. They have a whole claim that they're trying to solve. And they are willing to go to court. And they are willing to go to court from 1991. It is as early as 1991 that Serrano tell Assad, we want to go to court, and we want to resolve it by peaceful means, you see. And they have agreed in the compromise to agree to be bound by the decision of the ICJ and to help to implement the decision with the concurrence of the ICJ. So those are the things that make us feel good. And then the entire international community is supporting us in this venture. So that is the thing that gives us the confidence we have that we will solve it finally and peacefully.
All right. Quick question. Okay. We know that these things are, when it comes to the ICJ and when it comes to the agreement, etc., we're always, cut down the middle. There's a large majority that will go with the PUP and large majority that will go with UDP, red and blue. So from what we remember from before is that there was one time that the People United Party was for going to the ICJ, but now, of course, some people are not for going to the ICJ. The question is that how confident can we be in the advice of the current advisors, yourself, of course, and how confident are we that it is not politically motivated? No, the reason being, let me continue. All right. Precedence has shown that political agenda may be a barrier to objectivity. Now, there would be some people that will not agree because they're with others that say no, right? Now, the thing is that we look at you as our advisors, whether UDP, whether PUP. Is there any way that, some way that PUP and UDP could come together and say, hey, look, this are no political again. This is our power there. If they take this away from we have nothing for really vote for again. Exactly. So we have seen when one party desires one thing, the other tends to oppose. The advice of political players may be grounded by political agenda and not the intent of choosing the greater good for the citizens of Belize. And we are worried that the agenda may encourage misinformation, right? So, what would you say about that?
You want to answer, Pat?
Minister, I'll allow you to answer it, but I just wanted to tell you how important that question is. And the truth of the matter is that from my standpoint, everything else is fair play in Belize with PUP and UDP, except this, or any other parties except this. This is a national issue, should be non-political, and we have to look at it that way. If we miss this opportunity from working that way, and by the way, I think you should know that government decided and they authorized me to reach out to the opposition, and we've been talking with them and engaging them and so on. But in the end, yes, we are hoping for that, and Minister can elaborate.
Actually, the decision to go to referendum was taken years ago, because when we were young in those days, we did not trust the politicians to handle this matter at all. We did not want any politician to determine how we'll settle this dispute. And so we demanded that it be dealt with by referendum. And that's why you have the decision to make. It's really your decision to make, you know. All of us will go and all of us will vote. It's for that reason that we are educating you. Has nothing to do with politics. Yes, there are some unscrupulous, opportunistic politicians who will want to use it because they think they can win votes. So they tried to use it against me for years, thinking that they're going to cause me to lose in pick stock. That will not cause me to lose in pick stock. I am making sure that I try to find jobs for the people and houses and give them benefits that they need, and that is what most Belizeans want. But we need the security. So it's the security that we need to cause us to develop and grow faster that will come by voting yes to have the matter resolved, in my view. You see? So we cannot worry about what the politicians think. But I can tell you, I know of no political leader in the country that thinks that we should not go to the ICJ. None. None. Nobody in the PUP who is in a leadership position, certainly none of the persons who have held the post of foreign minister or prime minister who knows the dispute have said that. There may be some representatives who have little or no knowledge of the dispute, like most other people, who are still fearful. But every single political leader in Belize, the prime minister, Minister Musa, former prime minister, Assad, Schumann, Lisa Schumann, Godfrey Smith, Eamon Courtney, every person who has held the post of foreign minister and prime minister of Belize, today agrees that we should go to the ICJ. Johnny Briceño as well. I know of no political leader in the country who has had that high position and exposure who opposes going to the ICJ.
Let's say we go to the ICJ. Now, we know that when it comes to court, it costs money. Now, we have money to go to the ICJ, but from what I understand, of course, Guatemala may have a little bit wider financial backing than we do. So how does that limit our chance to be successful in this
Good
court?
question, but a simple one. It is far, far, far easier for us to find all the money we need to go to the ICJ than it would be for us to find money to buy military equipment and arms and weapons and the like. So going to the ICJ is the most level playing field that we can have, because we can find the money to pay for the best lawyers, and we have retained the best lawyers. Lawyers who we started to retain from the 1970s and 80s, and the very best in the world. We have the money to retain them. We have retained them. I am not one of them. But we have them. And we already have them. We already have them in retainer. They are already working for us. The very best in the world. And you notice this in fact, and I will leave this with one of you, this man, Sir Elihu Lauterpack, he actually was on the ICJ. He was perhaps the foremost authority in England on the ICJ. He gave us his opinion. He, in fact, just handed over to us most of his material that he had. He died. He died at about 90 odd years old, very recently. But he was lawyer all the time. I think he used to be very senior at the ICJ and all the others. So this is the caliber of lawyers we have, just about the best in the world that money can buy.
So I'm following up that, who exactly would represent us if you were to go to the ICJ? And has the ICJ ever had a history of unfair judgment before?
Pat is going to answer who will represent us. He hands the finances, he will tell you.
Yes, so as Minister mentioned, we have engaged with a legal firm already, Freshfields. We've met with them. We have a wide section of lawyers representing us. We are in communication with them. As Minister mentioned, they've already started to ask us for information, all preparing the legal package. So that part is taken care of. As far as the funding is going, again, we have earmarked funding. It won't be cheap, but we have to get it, and we have a group of friends who are willing to assist us, and we are lobbying with them and making sure that we have the funding in place. That is my responsibility.
I want to follow up really quick on the financial part of that. So we go to the ICJ, let's say we do, and everybody agrees, yes, we're going to the ICJ. How long does that case, does it take the case to come up? And what's the duration before there is a ruling? Yeah. And do we have the funds to give these lawyers up until that duration?
We have to find the funds, as Minister mentioned. Go ahead, Minister.
It won't take more than about 4 years for the whole thing to be completed. Because shortly after we finish the referendum, we then sign up to the ICJ. And it takes about 3-4 years to complete the whole process. Belize has wealth untold. Don't make anybody tell you that Belize don't have money. We have lots of resources. It is only needs smart people, and it is smart people who generate wealth. People like you will generate the wealth. So even if it lasts longer than 4 years, I have no doubt that you will generate the wealth to pay for it, so that in fact we can have the best lawyers. Those of you who are in KFL, we have some of the best students there. I've had the opportunity of being there myself. Beautiful place. So we don't have to worry. We have very good, talented people.
They don't look too happy about having to pay for that just now. You were thinking of that. Yeah, go ahead.
To answer his question, there's the recent case of the Basaki Peninsula matter. And following the ICJ decision on the 22nd of November 2007, Cameroon is now governing the peninsula on the Gulf of Guinea. This sovereignty was transferred from Nigeria, and the ICJ instructed Nigeria to transfer power over to Cameroon of the peninsula, but it did not require its inhabitants to move or change their nationality. Regarding the second part of your question, where it was if it's biased or unfair, the Chief Richard Akinjibe, a former Nigerian Attorney General and the Minister of Justice who had been a leading member of the Nigeria's legal team, described the decision as 50% international law and 50% international politics, and as blatantly biased and unfair, and as a total mistake. Today, there are still many issues coming from that decision. The residents that are still there are not abiding to the new government and all of that. So just to answer his question. Yeah. And my question now is, we're talking about going to the ICJ and all of that. Regarding the voting system, how does that work? We noticed that recently in Guatemala, Ms. Marlene was covering that. We noted that they have a huge population, but only a minority percentage showed up. And is it true that the referendum is based on a majority of the turnout and not on the total population of the voters? For example, as I mentioned, the Guatemala, but majority of those voters voted yes. So how does that work for Belize?
Well, you understand the democratic principle. Every single Belizean, like every single Guatemalan who qualified, had the right, the entitlement, and the obligation to go and vote. Every single Belizean will have that right, entitlement, and obligation. But if Belizeans choose not to go, and only 50% of the registered voters decide to go, those are the people who will make the decision, because that is essentially the democratic principle. It is the majority vote, the majority of those who take the trouble and time and discharge their civic obligation, who go out and vote, they will determine whether we go to the ICJ or not. For that reason, it is imperative, absolutely important, that all of you get registered and encourage your friends. Go and get registered and encourage your friends to get registered.
So a
that you
simple
can
majority.
vote. Yeah, it's a simple majority.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Anybody else? Who
Bryton, you
haven't
had
spoken?
something? Or in the middle? Yes.
Okay, I'm taking a step back a little. You only mentioned the educational campaign.
Yes.
What is your office doing to make sure that young people like ourselves can understand what's happening? Because I've read some of the booklets and pamphlets, and some terms are not too quite understandable. So what is your office doing for us to be able to understand those
Entire
terms?
process, yes.
Good question. Good question. And I think one of the initiatives that we have is to conscript young people who will, in fact, help us to prepare and tweak and fashion the educational material so that it is more easily digestible and understood by the young people. But don't feel badly, because when I use the expression artificial border, most people in Belize didn't seem to understand it. Even people who are graduated from university, although the meaning was right in the dictionary and on Google. So don't feel badly. We are going to work with young people to help you to
Understand, definitely.
make it simple so that people can understand.
Continue. What, like you mentioned earlier that I think I forgot her name. Jenine mentioned she brought up a scenario, and you said that it was not a fact; it was sort of opinionated. What is your office doing to make sure that the facts is given and not the opinion of the people?
All right, that's why I brought the books. Everything you hear me say, I got from some book or some source or the other. I say nothing that is generated from me alone. And that's why I have so many books. I have hundreds of books on the Belize Guatemala issue, and I'm constantly reading, studying, and researching it. So that whatever I tell you, you can verify on Google or on some library or the other. All right? And it's not only dealing with the local issues. For example, this deals with the border disputes that China has with its neighbors.
Go ahead, Bryton.
Minister, you said that you are willing to work with young people. Currently, we are only consumers of the educational campaign, so to speak. How is it that we could get more actively involved in the educational campaign process? What financial mechanism exists at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, for example, for us to be actively involved in assisting in the education process?
I am sure that Ambassador Rosado and the referendum unit would be pleased to engage as many youth as we can. We already have a small group, but we're going to need lots of help. You talk about financial assistance being put in place, and we think that yes, we'll be able to do that too. It won't be able to be a big salary thing, but if you can provide of your time and so on, we will be able to see how we can assist and help out, and we want to have the trainers happening, so that then we can have these youth or these facilitators fan out throughout the country to all the villages and so on, and to help our people understand the real story.
Okay, Minister, I know that you said that Guatemala agreed to abide by the ruling of the ICJ, but what if they were to continue with their claim? Would we then go to the UN, because I know that the Security Council normally deals with the dispute for international peace. So
the only time we would need to go to the UN is if in fact they sought to violate our sovereignty. In other words, if we have the official Guatemalan military coming into Belizean territory, we would then have to go to the Security Council, and then the Security Council acts by bringing pressure to bear on Guatemala. What we have been doing over the last 10 years since I've been foreign minister is whenever we had the citizens, not necessarily Guatemalan officials, because they have not really been the ones who have been infringing our territorial sovereignty, but the citizens, the ordinary citizens, and the people, the soldiers in the Sarstoon, what we do is we go to the OAS, we enlist their assistance in talking to the Guatemalans as well as the U.S. State Department. After the referendum and after we go to the ICJ, we won't go to the OAS again. We would like to go to the United Nations Security Council to put the people who are breaching the international law, because it would be a breach of international law for them to be breaking into our country, violating our sovereignty. And then we go to the United Nations that deals with it. And we'll get assistance through the Security Council.
So very clearly we hear you say security personnel come over, military personnel. What happens with the recurrent incursions in the Chiquibul and even the fishers who come over into the Sarstoon as well?
Actually, that is the gravest danger we face. The gravest danger is from the ordinary citizens who come across in search of a livelihood. Because if we cause fatality with those people, it heightens the tension and really create problem for us, headache for us. So we have got to work with the Guatemalans and the international community to try to provide employment and source of income generation for those people so that they can stay in their country, and also work with the Guatemalan military and the Guatemalan police to help them to contain their people within their boundaries. You see, so it is a partnership which we already have with the Guatemalans in that they work with us to keep their people within their borders. We work not only with the military but also with the conservationists, because they also are seriously affected by the despoilation of their forests and the like. So they work with us. So it's a partnership which we have to maintain, and hopefully that will become stronger and stronger, because a pristine forest benefits both Belize and Guatemala, you know. So,
Sorry, just to backtrack slightly, you said that a part of the fear of receiving a no vote from the Belizean people for going to the ICJ was that we would lose international backing.
that's what Assad says, and I agree with it.
Okay. My question is, why would that be if we're already supported and acknowledged by the UN and organizations such as the OAS?
Good question. We have the OAS office in the adjacency zone. That office costs in excess of $1 million annually to manage. That funds is donated by the European Union, by Turkey, by other countries.
Group of friends.
But as the group of friends, now I have been in charge of foreign affairs for the last 11 years. And they tell me repeatedly, Mr. Elrington, we cannot continue to spend our taxpayers' money indefinitely protecting you all. You have to resolve the dispute. If you don't resolve the dispute, we are going to disengage. So if you vote no, there is likelihood is, as Assad has said, they will disengage. They will continue to support us. And then we'll be really in big problems.
But can you further clarify what that disengagement means?
They just close down the adjacency zone office. They just close it down because you can't finance it. The group of friends is not going to finance it. We have come very close to having that done, and we have had to have countries like Turkey and Mexico come in with a few $100,000 to keep it open. But they will just leave. Why it's so important to have them there? Because when we have an incident, for example, when there's a shooting in the Chiquibul, the OS goes there to verify what actually happened so that we can put to the international community the correct incident. But if there is no such verification, and the Guatemalans get exceedingly upset, as they tend to do, and decide to take matters into their own hands, we are really in a bad situation. So we need to have them. But they can't continue to be there indefinitely. And remember, this is a dispute that has been going on for over 100 years.
I'm young as well. I'm young as well, and this comes across to me as some sort of a pressure on a small country such as Belize, especially with this situation. Now, what comes to mind as well is, what if, yes, there is a no vote? Is it a one and done? Can we go back to see what happens again, and if there is a possibility we can go back to it? Now, the question derives because these are some of the things that we need to know.
Yeah. You see this book here? You see this book here? You see the name of this book? All Out War. This is the campaigning with Brexit. You know about Brexit? Brexit, they voted to leave the European Union. And now they're having the biggest time and problem in the United Kingdom because they want to know whether they'll get another vote now to decide whether to stay in. Nobody knows. Quien sabe? You don't know. You don't know if you'll get another chance. It's a big problem. It's a huge problem facing the United Kingdom. If the problem is so huge for them, how much more will it be for us? You see, we don't control the matter ourselves. It is not a decision that we make unilaterally. We have to move when the Guatemalans move. And it took us years to get them to this position where they agreed to go to the ICJ. Who says when, if ever, they will agree again if in fact we give up this chance? We don't know. We can't take the risk because we are too small and too vulnerable. And it's for that reason that we need to proceed by prevention rather than seeking to cure.
Who wants to take who to the ICJ, and what if it was the flip side for both?
The British invited the Guatemalans to go to the ICJ from 1937.
And
The Belizeans in 1948, on our Legislative Assembly 49, agreed to go to the ICJ. The Guatemalans refused. The Guatemalans agreed to go. Did I show you a photograph with some warships?
Yes, yes.
If you look at the bottom of this one, it says here at the bottom of this particular, this is a document produced in England in March 6, 1948. March 6, 1948. And it says at the bottom here, the caption, it says, "Our suggestion to refer the dispute to international court has been refused." The British suggested it to the Guatemalans from 1937. They refused. And then it says here, "Since the above was written, it has been announced that Guatemala has proposed to submit the dispute to the Hague Court." So in 1948, the Guatemalans did agree to go, but they wanted to go on a principle of law called ex aequo et bono, which is a principle not based on strict law, but based on what you would want to see is right and just.
What's
A
fair?
principle, what is right and just and fair. The British said, no, we're not going on that basis at all. We want to go on strict law. And from 1948 until 2008, they resisted going on strict law until 2008, when we got into office. They said, all right, fine. And this recommendation was made by the Secretary General of the OAS in Sulza. In like manner in which the new Secretary General of the United Nations has recommended to Guyana that they take their dispute to the ICJ because they have a dispute too, and they have been very glad to accept that. All right? So the dispute and the decision to go to the ICJ was made long ago by the British, long before you and I were born. And the British at that time was the most powerful country in the world. It was the only superpower in the world. And they agreed to go to the ICJ. And they owned Belize at that time. And nobody was pressuring them. They owned Belize at that time. And Guatemala could not have pressured them. But they thought that that was the most prudent thing to do. I tend to agree with that. And it's for that reason that I'm so passionate about it.
Jump in.
Minister, I'm going to ask a question. It may seem a bit cynical, but do you believe that we have borders?
If I believe that we have borders?
Yes.
Borders are agreed internationally. Whether it's a domestic border or a border between countries, it has to be agreed. And that's why I distribute this document to you, because the document shows what is international law. What is important is not what I believe, you know. It is what international law dictates. So you, and I urge you as a young person to be aware of the difference. What you believe is not important. Everybody has an opinion. What is important is what is legal. That is what binds people. And this document shows the established boundaries. You see, it's demarcated in thick red line. Virtual boundaries, dotted line, and then you have the ball there. That is the main area of dispute. You notice on this map here, Belize has none of the thick red lines. In other words, it does not have established boundaries. I saw this articulated very clearly in Sulza's book, Secretary General of OAS, when he explained that the Belizean negotiators between 2000 and 2005 started negotiating with the Guatemalans the maritime boundary. And when they were in the middle of their negotiation, it was pointed out to them by international lawyers that you cannot arrive at maritime boundaries unless you have established terrestrial boundaries. Unless the land boundary was established, you cannot arrive at maritime boundaries. So they had to discontinue that process. And anybody who has the slightest knowledge of surveying will know that in order to survey even a parcel of land, really and truly the law requires that you communicate with your neighbor, because the significance of it is that boundary lines really and truly are imaginary lines. And the same boundary line that you have is the same boundary line that I have if we are neighbors. It's a one line. And really and truly, again, you can't really clean boundary line or clear boundary line. You can't even find where it is. It's for that reason that you have this adjacency zone where you have the surveyors come, the geographers, and show where the midline is supposed to be, and then you have that buffer so that you can see it. You clear the area east and west of the line, but it's very difficult to see where the line is. You have to have special tools to do that.
If I'm right, I think Bryton is trying to get your personal stance on whether or not we have defined borders, because when you speak of artificial borders, it often gives a total different image to the Belizean people.
Yes, but that's why we have to educate the Belizean people. I'm simply saying that the British and the Guatemalans got together in 1859, and through their geographers and the others, they agreed upon lines of longitude and latitude that constitute our borders. They agreed on those lines. All right? That was agreed upon.
Having said all of that, I would mention to you that the Guatemalans, if they want to come into Belize at the border and so on, they have to stop there and be processed. That is the recognized.
Because they recognize,
they
recognize that 1859 line, you know. They recognize the 1859 line. They recognize it, but let's make it more correct. They call it an adjacency line. They refuse to sit down and negotiate with our negotiators unless our negotiators agree that they will not use the expression border and they will use the expression adjacency line.
Let me push a bit further on that, because this is one of the areas I know that the public has the greatest issue with. As the lead negotiator, the lead representative for a country in this issue, how you speak of our borders is very personal for people. And I want to use the very example of representatives from Guatemala. They won't say border. They won't say, in fact, they will say in every presentation that they can that Belize is a part of Guatemala, a very firm, solid stance on their claim. Why have you not taken a similar stance in having a very firm, clear language in saying the border exists, Belize is for Belize, and really the very opposite of what we're hearing from Guatemala? Why has that not been a part of your own messaging?
I cannot mislead my people, and I will not do that. I prefer to go home than to tell you a lie about a matter that is so important. The Guatemalans tell their people that Belize belongs to them. Belize belongs to Guatemala. Belize, Guatemala. Belize, Guatemala. We know it's a lie. I am not going to do that. I will tell you that in 1859, the British and the Guatemalans agreed on a border. In 21st September 1939, the Guatemalans disputed it and rejected it. I have always held that we have a border. I didn't use the expression adjacency line, you know. I use the expression artificial border, which is a technical legal expression. It is even better than the expression adjacency line. And I said we have that. There's no question about that. And I said Belize belongs to us. But you and I will not resolve the problem by quarreling. And it makes no sense for us to, what people call, imbecilize the society by making the society believe that something is true which is not true. It is disputed. And therefore we have to get it resolved. And we are basing our entitlement on the 1859 treaty, the 1931 treaty, and the 1893 treaty. And that is basically the legal position. And I'm a lawyer, so I can't do less than that.
I think this is a similar case to the one which was recently resolved between Costa Rica and Nicaragua. Because the same thing happened with Google Maps, putting out the artificial dotted lines between Costa Rica and Nicaragua over the dispute of the San Juan River. And we know that Costa Rica filed a case at the ICJ in 2010, 2011, and in 2015 a final decision was made, but Nicaragua did not respect the decision of the ICJ. And since we're on this matter right now, I'd like to take a more historical approach. In 1763, there was a treaty that asserted Spanish sovereignty over our land. In 1786, there was the Convention of London. And the Convention of London led to the 1859 Anglo Guatemalan Treaty, which Article 7 of the 1859 treaty was implemented as well within this article. And that is what Guatemala said that we broke. We broke our agreement. Can you clarify what implication the Clayton, let me just be, the Clayton Bulwer Treaty of 1850, would have, what kind of implication would it have on our position at the ICJ, considering the fact that Britain had already agreed to end or discontinue the fortification and colonization of lands, which included the Mosquito Coast and different areas in Central America?
Absolutely no bearing whatsoever. An entirely different treaty dealing with an entirely different set of territories. Really and truly, the British used to occupy territories way in Yucatan Peninsula and as far down as the Malvinas, so that they had different treaties with different countries dealing with different issues, and the United States. Mm-hmm. The United States took the view that that country was supposed to be the only country responsible for territories in the Western Hemisphere, and they did not want the British to be anywhere near there. That is how the Clayton Bulwer Treaty came about, but it has nothing to do with the resolution of this claim between Belize and Guatemala, nothing. And you don't want to get confused with that. It is irrelevant and have no bearing on the issue whatsoever. I've never heard any of the legal advisors who have advised on Belize even discuss the Clayton Bulwer Treaty in terms of the resolution of this dispute.
Just a comment regarding the borders. In international law, I may be a little rusty because I did public international law last year. One of the criteria for a country to become sovereign and get its independence is that it must have a clear defined border. And I think that although there's the adjacency, there is still parts of Belize that we know once you enter into that area, you're in Belize. And we are a sovereign democratic country, meaning, we have our own government, we have our own people, we have our own way of life. Mm-hmm. I think that Guatemala must respect our country and should not be saying that Belize is a part of them until the ICJ decision comes clear.
Mm-hmm. Well, Guatemala will continue to take that position unless and until you have the ICJ telling them, no, you're wrong, you're completely wrong, you're completely mistaken. It's for that reason that we have to go to the ICJ. Mm-hmm. Also, too, we never had an agreement with respect to the sea and the boundary on the sea, so the ICJ has to do that as well, you see? But there is no dispute that we are a sovereign independent nation. So there has got to be something wrong with your postulation there, because everybody agrees that Belize is sovereign, independent. Mm-hmm. There's no dispute about that. The only dispute that really we have is what are the boundaries of the territory as far as I'm concerned, And we have our own view that those are articulated in the treaties which we have. That is our view. That is my view. That's the official view of the government of Belize, which I articulate. Mm-hmm. That the boundaries of Belize are described by the three treaties, and that they will not change irrespective of what happens at the ICJ. But Guatemala doesn't hold that view, and it's for that reason we have to get it resolved.
Now Belize is independent, but previously known as British Honduras. Do we inherit any obligations to any treaties formed with Guatemala and British Honduras?
We benefit from those treaties, yes. The 1859 treaty, the treaty with Mexico was 1893 between Britain and Mexico. That is a treaty that describes Corozal and that area at the top. The 1859 treaty describes the area by Cayo going down to PG and the Sarstoon. And then, of course, the 1931 treaty. We benefit from those treaties, and therefore we have the obligation to be bound by them.
Question. Now, we understand that, of course, since we're speaking of the borders, the reason why there was an initial survey was because, of course, there was a lot of wood cutting happening and going towards Petén, correct? Which is why Guatemala had requested a survey. Now, survey, let's look at it on a domestic perspective. If I had a problem with land with this young man, we will go to the court. If it is surveyed before and we don't agree on the territory, we would have it resurveyed. Would this be an option in order for the whole country to be resurveyed?
We don't have an option for the whole country to be resurveyed, and we don't want that. Belize doesn't want that. Belize is saying that these are our borders. It's already surveyed and agreed to from 1859 and 1893. All we want is for the court to tell that to Guatemala so that Guatemala can back off with its spurious claim that in fact it owns Belize. And we want them to survey the sea area. We want that to be delimited. But the land area and down south is already surveyed. And we believe that those are our borders. We believe that. We believe that that will not change. That's why we are so confident in saying ICJ is the only way. Because we believe that. We are convinced of that.
No, let's say that we come out of this case successful, and it just so happened that Guatemala does not respect the decision. What do we do then?
We go to the Security Council in the event of a breach. In other words, if they refuse, let me give you a good scenario. Let us say that we go to ICJ on the 10th of April. We agree to go to the ICJ. All right? Or on the 10th of April next year, we agree that we will not go to the ICJ and we vote no. This is just a scenario. And when we wake up on the 11th of April and we look out in front of San Pedro, we see a Guatemalan oil exploration rig being sunk on the reef or beyond the reef in front of San Pedro. What do we do? What do we do? We say, no, we don't want to go to the ICJ. And then we see this Guatemalan rig the very following day strike anchor and start to explore in front of San Pedro. What do we do?
We will be in the same situation as Brexit, correct?
We'll be in a worse situation. I really know we don't have any support. The international community, we can't say you are in Belizean waters because the ICJ has not pronounced. Domestically, we believe that it is our waters. We believe that. But this is now you're involving another country that is saying, no, that is my water. So you have to go to court to get it resolved. You see the kind of problem you're faced with? Whereas if you say you go to the ICJ, yes, we will go to the ICJ. The ICJ makes its pronouncement and says these are Belize's maritime waters. And after he makes that pronouncement, you wake up one morning and see the Guatemalan gunboat within Belizean waters. What you do? You go to the Security Council and say, look, they are violating our international boundaries. We need your assistance to get them out. They will assist us because everybody needs to have order in the international system. You can't have chaos. And so you will have the international community come together. Security Council is going to make some pronouncements to tell the Guatemalan back off or else.
All right, follow-ups, anybody? Over here? Bryton? No? Okay. I wanted to follow up there because I feel that the education campaign is ongoing, whether we see it or not. People are being educated by what they see in the media. They're being educated by what they hear on the streets, from their taximan, from what they hear in the classrooms as students. Many of us, and I'm sure the panel here agrees, we know the fears, as you've articulated earlier, from our parents. We know what it felt like. We hear from them what it felt like to have a perceived threat of an invasion. There is a lot of emotion tied to this issue. Can you honestly say that the government has done sufficient work to ensure that Belizeans will be adequately educated on this process? And the treaties are a whole lot. I mean, we got some law students here, so they can handle them well. But some of the information is a lot for people to digest. And so at this point, we're ruled predominantly by emotion.
Yeah.
Can you honestly say to yourself that the efforts that have been made are sufficient?
Yeah, very good question. And you remember I started off by commending Channel 5 for sponsoring these discussions, because government will never have the resources and the capacity to educate the public to the extent that the education needs to be given. This thing should have been done years ago. We should have been taught this matter in school every day of our lives. I am now almost 70 and have never had a day instruction in any classroom in relation to this matter. I got my instruction at the political meetings that I used to attend almost every Friday night while I was growing up. But let me tell you the reality. You see this all-out war Brexit book that I brought? If you go right now on the internet, you will find out that the British people are accusing the government and the others for misinforming them and not properly informing them about the Brexit issue. There were people who voted in relation to Brexit who knew nothing of the European Union, and the British are members of the European Union. So not even the great United Kingdom with all its resources was able to properly educate its people. And the people, it is believed that those who put out the most misleading information and the most harmful information were the ones who won the day. People followed them only to find themselves in serious problem now. That is the view on one side. So it is imperative that media houses like Channel 5 and all the other media houses start doing the education process and bring in whoever they want. It is also imperative that all you young people, you at Galen and you at UB and you at UWI, all of you have meetings with your people and educate them. Because when the ship sinks, if it sinks, all of us will go down. If it stays and rises, all of us will rise. In other words, all of us are in this one. It is not politicians, it's not PUP and UDP, it's your future as well as mine and my children. So we have the obligation and the responsibility to educate ourselves and to educate our peers.
And I think that is one of the reasons why I consistently try to get across that the educational campaign must be one that's following the democratic process. It must be one which presents the opportunity for individuals in the society to make a position, an informed position, but it cannot exclude the varying positions. It cannot just be a position of yes, we must go to the ICJ, but you have to allow citizens to make that decision. And that's what I really want to drive home today.
Final question from one of the member of the student body. What other non-legal political options can Belize and Guatemala enter instead of going to the ICJ? Is there another feasible way that we can explore, and one that is less detrimental to Belize?
I like Assad's position on this. He says that he knows of no other solution, and nobody has proposed any. But I have no doubt about the ingenuity and the smartness of the young Belizeans. I am sure one of you will be able to come up with a better solution. As soon as you come up with that better solution and put it to government, I'm sure the government will accept it. But the ball is now in your court. You come up with a better solution. And we'll be prepared to look at it, bearing in mind at all times that this is a two-man show. In other words, we can't decide to do anything unilaterally without getting the consent of the Guatemalans. Indeed. So your better solution will have to meet with the approval of the Guatemalans if in fact we are going to get anywhere.
Failing that, April 10, 2019.
Right.
So what we're going to do now is go ahead and take our final break. And when we come back, we're going to have our closing comments from the panel and, of course, from Minister and CEO. So please stay tuned.
If you're looking for low-cost television advertising, have we got a deal for you? Advertise on Channel 5's Daily Classifieds. Channel 5's Daily Classifieds is one of the most effective methods for introducing yourself and your business to the community. Use our Daily Classifieds to recruit employees, promote specials, promote your products or services, promote a business opportunity, increase traffic to your website, and advertise items you have for sale. Let us help you save valuable time and money. Call us today at 223-0146 or visit us at our offices on Pony Drive to discuss how we can help your business grow affordably. Channel 5's Daily Classifieds. Advertise today.
When someone you love becomes a memory, the memory becomes a treasure. Channel 5 introduces the Daily Obituaries. The Daily Obituaries will broadcast all death and funeral announcements and memorials to honor your loved one's life and memories. The Daily Obituaries airs on Channel 5 prior to the evening newscast, with subsequent repeats at 10 p.m. and 12 noon the following day. It will also be placed online on our social media platforms, all for a standard package fee. Celebrate their lives and memories with Channel 5's Daily Obituaries. Honor in life and reverence in death.
And welcome back, and we are getting ready to close off this conversation for this morning. We're so grateful for our participants who joined us. We sent out invitations to most tertiary level institutions across the country, and we were able to get these brilliant minds with us this morning. I was asking during the break, and I think it's a fair question to ask on air, just the level of how many people have decided how they would vote in the referendum. And I want to give you the opportunity to be able to tell me that now. Who has already made up their mind? You don't have to tell me how you're going to vote. Yeah? Was this prior to this conversation, or?
Yes, this was prior. I've been aware of the issue since I was in high school, because they had been doing campaigns. I think it was in 2013, sorry. But yeah, I saw the evidence, and I believe that we have a strong case.
Mm-hmm. Jenine?
Well, most of the issues that happened down south with the Sarstone and the Chickaboo Forest, it has caused a lot of problems for Belizeans and for our soldiers as well, because they have to constantly be in that area. So I think that based on everything and on our guests, well, I'm a guest also, but on on cementing all that information today, I'm able to form a better decision.
Okay.
And I just want to say that knowledge is power, and by educating the entire population of Belize about this entire matter, it's very important.
Yeah.
Mike?
Well, I have been very undecided at times because of the fact that I was very questionable about how the judges are chosen. The question that you asked, and worrying if it would be a political situation where if the judges were politically chosen, and if so, it would be not to our favor because we don't have a lot of money as Belize, as this country Belize. And but as my colleague here said, the more we are informed, the better informed opinions we can make. Okay. And more and more, I see that indeed we must take care of the situation before it comes out of hand and before our allies are tired of helping us. Yes. So I believe indeed we should get it out of the way.
Okay.
And Bryton, you said you're still undecided?
Yes, I am still on the fence, but I understand the facts and that we have a strong case. But I also understand that there are litigation risks. I think personally for me, I just want to make an informed decision, considering the fact that the history of the Guatemala-Belize dispute, the information is very extensive. And so I want to be able to make a sound decision before I make my decision.
Yeah, similarly to Bryton, I remain on the fence because like you said earlier that a lot of the information that we receive is informal information and we tend to be driven a lot by emotion that is passed down to us from our parents, from people we meet and, our elders. But as time goes on and as we grow and we mature for ourselves, we're able to seek out the information for ourselves and educate ourselves. So, like he said, there is still a lot of risk that is involved, but I also agree that we do have a strong position, and it could be to the betterment of the society.
Well, you guys still have some time to make that decision. Have you two? Where are you in your decision-making process?
Before I was on this, didn't know how I was going to vote, but I have been doing some research, been in some workshop, and after today and clarifying some of my question, I know now how
you're going to vote. Okay.
Well, prior to this, I wasn't very much on the defensive kind of part for no, but after further investigation and research, and right here on the talk show, I'm on an equal kind of leverage.
All right. You feel like you've been adequately informed. Yeah, I don't want to pressure anybody into saying how they're going to vote. But lastly, you are a very important generation in this conversation, in what you will face in the future, which means you, your friends, your little brothers, little cousins need to understand this issue. You have your last minute to directly speak to Minister and CEO about what you would like to see, want to see, demand to see as a Belizean in the education process that is to unfold. Anybody?
I would like if any education to the public is provided, that it is not too complicated, because some people might not understand it, and at first personally I didn't understand much of it, so I know other people might also have the same problem, so just I dumb it down for the public.
Keep it simple, right? Keep it simple, all right.
Just straightforward, straight to the point.
I agree.
Anybody else?
I think one of the most important things for us, for this generation, is to use the various outlets to relay the information, because for us, using what we would consider the old school methods of relaying information wouldn't work. So the Facebook and the different media outlets is the best way to reach our generation, and I think that is important for us, because then we'll be able to make a sound decision.
Excellent.
I would like to say, to make it more youth friendly, make youth be the face of this campaign, because for a lot of young people, they won't listen to the older generation. They want to listen to their peers. So I would say make it youth friendly.
They did that in Guatemala, actually, yeah.
And coming from Jamaica and part of the last student body that is there, and actually Barbados and the UAE, we come home every summer and Christmas. We'd like to be involved, and I love, this is something that is very touching for all of us. So, maybe we could help out in that way, or find a medium for us to contribute
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
And just lastly, I want to restate again that we just want to ensure that the process is democratic
Yeah.
and to ensure that the information is palatable, that everyone can digest.
Very good.
Did you go? Last.
Well, I was also going to say that it would be good if we would use the youths in order to speak to youths, because it's easier to get to the youths through the youths, and also of
You don't want
course,
to listen to us, right?
and of course, using the different mediums which the youths use, even through text messages. You know, the various telemedia companies, and then and also make it understandable.
Yeah.
So everyone can understand across the board.
So once again, let me just say thank you individually to our panel: Zachary Garbutt from Galen University, Micheal Zuniga from UE Belize, Janine Wiliams from UE Jamaica, Alexandria Tillett from UE Barbados. We have William Ortiz from ITVET Orange Walk, Shayanne Dena, who's the Secretary of National Youth Council, and Bryton Codd, who is a part of a youth association and also an athlete. Thank you to all of you.
Thank
and
you
now
so
our
very much.
closing remarks are from Minister and CEO.
Go ahead, CEO.
Thank you very much. I want to just express to you how grateful I am for the time to share with you this morning. I've heard your feedback very loud and clear. As we speak, we have within the referendum unit a group of youngsters who are reaching out on social media. We have apps on Android and Apple. And so when you come home for Christmas and so on, come visit us at Foreign Affairs. It will be an ongoing process. I'm sure that Ambassador Rosado will be happy to engage you all. And we're going to keep it simple. We're going to keep it simple. We know that there is a very important aspect in communicating, and we want to reach to everyone. So from north to south, east to west, we're going to keep it simple, we promise you. And you will be involved. So I thank you very much, and thank you to Channel 5. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to say that the response coming from you all is the typical response we get when we make our representation. People just want the information. And when you give people information, they see that the decision is clear. It's not difficult to decide what to do once you get the information. Unlike in the old days, when I was growing up, there was only one radio station. So nobody else's voice could be heard except that radio station. Now you have Facebook, Twitter, text. So the democratic process is very much alive, more than you may want to think. Everybody has a view and everybody can express it freely. Let me end by thanking Channel 5. It's an exemplary service they're providing. I don't normally agree with Channel 5, but I never refuse their offer to come on their program, and I express to them when I have disagreement. But if every other media house were to take a page out of their book and hold forum like this and town hall meetings like this, everybody would be educated on the matter within time for the election. So I want to thank you all again and again and again. Thank you.
And we thank you for coming back each time. Of course, we have another one scheduled in 2 months, so we'll give you due notice. But thank you as well to our youth participants. We're going to go ahead and take our final break, allow everybody to leave, and we will be back with our wrap-up, so stay tuned.